This is reporter Julie Spencer, and I'd like to welcome you to Newsline, Iowa City. Please join me today as we descend 35 feet into the ground and visit the Brewery Tunnels at the corner of Lynn and Market Streets. Iowa State archaeologist Marlon Ingalls will give us a historical perspective and tour of the caves where beer was manufactured underground in Iowa City in the mid-1800s.
Without the lights, there's not much to see. The first time I came down here, just little flashlights and stuff, it was like going down looking for the Titanic.
When did you first come down into the caves?
Well, that's a good question. It was sometime in the mid-90s. I'd heard about it previously, and I knew it was here.
What did you find intriguing about the caves?
Well, for one, it was such a large entity, and so little was known about it, and it was unappreciated, really. I mean, I liked what it was, and I thought it had really great potential, not just as a curiosity, but as, you know, something to be able to generate interest and hopefully to, you know, get people interested in it. And it was just also a good way to promote the north side. Now, I will be spotting for everybody that comes down the ladder, and if I say, you know, stand up straight or stick your butt in, or you can't take that, it's all for everybody's safety benefit. There. Right, excellent. This is all elements of ventilation and various pipe work, and at one time electricity, I would assume, ran down here. These lamp niches are earlier elements from the oil lamps. Of course, when this is built, kerosene wasn't available, so you either had oil lamps, which is expensive, or tallow candles, or rush lights. This are the remains of the vats. They were burned away, so we're looking at the hoops.
So this is where it was all stored?
This is, well, this is where part of it was stored, yes, and in the other room too. Bad.
And then there's a whole series of lights in here. Oh, you got it.
Yeah. That, it's always, you know,
Yeah.
here, to say the least.
So what was this room used for?
Well, again, this is the storage. There are some pieces of hoops and piping and plumbing. There was fixtures up here in the wall to hang piping. This is the view upstairs to the place in the hallway, and so that goes up to the first floor.
Wow.
At one time there was a chimney and a steam engine down here, or near here. We'll do it for real within an inch. Right.
There's an extra climbing wall up there.
This was generally, I believe, usually on other brewery sites, this was for floating the kegs. They didn't have to lift them and roll them, they would just put them in here. and let them and float down. Well, there's various graffiti elements. I never added one.
You should.
Well, that's not what I do as an archaeologist. You don't chisel your
I
name
know.
into things generally.
I know.
Or take anything with you, leave nothing but footprints. There's some possibilities that this is a filled-in tunnel that went into the brewmaster's house, which is right on the parking lot to the west of the building, the big brick house back out there in the back.
Do you know who built the caves?
Well, the workmen were almost always in the mid-1850s German stonemasters and Irish laborers. And so this is a cut and cover kind of building where they excavated the entire whole of the building and the tunnels down to the bedrock and left a big pit, leveled off the bedrock, and then started the brick construction of the tunnels and then worked their way up to the third floor and above. And so all these bricks are handmade, sets of 3 to 6. Soft mud bricks, all hand struck, hand formed, sugared on the outside so they would slip in and out of the molds easily. And then they would have been fired in a wood kiln, and because there was no coal in the 1850s.
Do you know how long it took to build it?
It took about 2 years.
That's not very long.
And making sure that you already had all the bricks and the stones and everything ready to go. Again, we have venting and tubing that would probably have gone upstairs to the malting areas and other areas on really the third floor, and be piped down progressively from the third floor to the second floor to the sub-basement. And then when they were finished off in here, they would have been put in kegs and then taken up an elevator where we came down and then distributed inside the building, and then from there outside to other commercial establishments, including the tavern they had in the hotel across the street. Now, I had reread, the insurance plats say that they made a couple thousand kegs a year, but later on in some historical documents, this brewery was making about 20,000 kegs a year. And there were people staying and sleeping in here 24/7. So, I mean, beer is continuously being processed and operated and looked at, and they wanted somebody to just be here in case of fire or accident or whatever. So it's pretty standard for having, say, 2 to 5 people staying over in the breweries here, including the other 2 that are nearby.
How long were the tunnels in use?
Well, Prohibition came in several times in Iowa. There was 2 Prohibition periods before 1900, then there was the big one in 1916. In Iowa, started Prohibition 2 years before the federal government did, and everybody just went to Illinois and bought liquor and shipped it back in suitcases on the train into town, so it didn't do much good. There had been at least 5 that I know of Prohibition periods in Iowa, and they would last 5 years, and then they'd get rid of them, and then there'd be 5 or 10 years of activity, and so that on and off thing, and then the final off during national prohibition really put the kibosh on brewing here in the 3 breweries here in downtown Iowa City along Market Street. And they were making a number of different kinds of beers, a very seasonal production kind of thing. So, you know, you would get the dark beers in the springtime and the Bach beers when you're cleaning out the vats and the tanks, and you get in the summertime they'd be brewing up because all the hops would be coming in and the wheat and the barley and all that fresh, and they'd be roasting that upstairs. And there was big drying rooms up there where they'd lay it out, let it dry, and then they'd roast it, and then they'd make their mash. There were ice houses, wood sheds, cooper shops, wood choppers, everybody right here on this property doing that all the time. So with all the breweries here, you would have essentially heard the sounds of grinding and chopping and forging and gurgling and the smells of the brewing. And it would have smelled probably a little like Cedar Rapids does when the wind blows here from 80 down. You get that fermented smell. It kind of been like that, only really pervasive around here. And I'm sure they must have used tons and tons of wood and coal in their operations. And there was a series of steam engines to provide electricity, probably at one time to run the elevators. Here's where the bookkeepers and such would sit, and here's the lamp niches, and they could do like the tallies, and there would have been like a little shelf and a desk in here,
That's the first floor.
and they had a little extra light.
So that's.
This is all stone with the arches on top of it. It's just bobby quarried right out of the hole here. There has always been reputed that that was an entrance that went, a tunnel that went under the street to the old hotel over there. And it might have just gone out to the street where there would have been a lift to take it up to street level where they could have done things that way. And also the elevator ran all the way up, I believe, so they could take some things out through the top level out there. But it's really hard to tell. I'm not sure how much of that has been reconstructed in order to accurately come up with the tunnel layouts, and seemingly all from the fire and the collapse of the elevator. And then construction work, I would think that some of it must have been pulled out from whatever was going on up there. This is in good shape. There's no intense structural damage. Access is difficult, obviously, but then that's one of the reasons it's so pristine, so to speak. And, you know, that will be addressed.
So Marlon, what do you see for the future of the Brewery Tunnels? What would you like to happen with them?
Well, first we're going to get awareness for it, and then we're going to Mark is, and I am just like helping him on this area, see about getting access to this, getting it cleaned out and making it commercially viable. And then with this commercially viable, get interest, you know, to the north side area businesses and the two other lost beer factories that were just up the road a half a block. So there's two of them there with the same systems underneath of them, but nobody knows where they're at, or except me, but you know, or how to get access to them. So
Where were the other ones?
The one was right across between the Bluebird and George's.
Okay.
There in that city parking lot,
Yeah.
and the other one was directly across the street, and that was the Englert Brewery, one of the first ones, and it was started in 1853. And then the one across the street was started around 1854, 55, and this one was the last one. This one, the Union Brewery, really got an operation here, I believe, in 1857. Whoever's down at the bottom of the ladder, spot her, and then next one up, spot them. Just put your foot on it and brace it.
So Marlon, do you have any closing comments about the tunnels?
Well, basically, it's such a great experience that whenever I come out of here, I feel kind of ebullient. I feel like lifted, or I've done something unusual or unique. You know, even after being down here as much as most people, like no more than probably 4 or 5 times, but everybody who leaves here really has a sense that they've been somewhere and they've done something and seen something they never would have ever seen on their own. And it's that uniqueness, that sensory uniqueness, I find very appealing and interesting to it. And I think it's one of its draws, and why I've gotten so much mail and interest in general.